Ah, my young fellow. Back again? You probably want to hear the continuation of the story about Vlad. Let me remember, where did we stop last time? Vlad united all the Sylvania under his control, set Isabel free, and was about to attack Württemberg in his ambition to one day get the throne of the empire. There was no peace in the lands north of Sylvania. Stuland was plagued by the forest spirits. Even in Ostermark, there was an invasion of orcs. Vlad will tame these lands and bring eternal calm to the pure humans that are living there. Before attacking Württemberg, Vlad wanted to create a platform first. For this purpose, he chose a village, Niedling. That was a one-day march from his position, even a one-day march from Württemberg. Isabel used her unnatural speed and magic to speed up the army and to be with her love in this battle. The lords of Sylvania gathered their forces to jointly attack Adalbert von Puppelscheid, whose troops were deployed near the village. This cowardly general, who once left his people to be torn apart by a crowd of skeletons in order to save his own life, now could not escape a retribution. Blood Knights and several undead wolves, hidden by a magical fog, came as close as possible to the troops of people covered behind forest. Before the undead legion attacked the living, Emmanuel and Sevon used their magical powers to sink the enemy's ranks. The remainder of the battle was brutal and swift. As a result, not a single person left the battlefield alive. In a barrow near the Needling, a nightmare creature was sighted and helsted. Not without difficulty, but Emmanuel was able to tame it with her blood. And so, she proved her power. At this time, the mortal infiltrator in Avaland delivered a message that the mad Count of Avaland, Marius Lydov, declared vampires a war. To von Carstein's luck, no other count believed that vampires are back. The Lord of Avaland sends his troops to take over the mood. But unsaid vampire was firstly interested to take Württemberg. The Temple of Myrmidia must be destroyed to demoralize Julian mercenaries who were a problem in the lost vampire war. Vlad also wanted to please Isabel with some noble trials and servants, with healthier and more delicious blood. Rumors told that Alberic helped Andersen is back in his capital, and he gathered forces to take a revenge. This is why Vlad decided to lure him into a trap. He led Isabel to pillage nearest villages and hid his forces in the Nile with a magic mist. And the trap worked. Alberic was caught by Vlad as his forces were marching to drive Isabel and her creatures of night away. Halberdiers were well trained troops, but even they can do anything against the magic of shadows. Even as a human lord can do anything in a duel with a vampire count, except to die. Alberich Ludenhof, a general of Iverland, assaulted Mood and took the village without any resistance. And Marius Leitdorf himself, with another army, was sighted as a captured settlement. Ignoring that, Vlad besieged Wurtbad, which was now defenseless, after a bigger part of the city protectors was smashed by the ambush of the Leipziger fort. Thomas Frankenwurter was defending this doomed city and died, together with a few men at arms that defended their home. After this victory, to get revenge over Haupt Anderson, Vlad declared himself as an overlord over Steeland and had him crowned by one of the Sigma Priester, who was ironically turned into a vampire. After the fall of Würtbad and the death of Alberich, Steeland fell apart, and the weakened parts of this land slowly passed into the dominion of the vampires. Only one place remained loyal to the murdered elector, a place called Flensburg. The local captain gathered under his command all the remnants of the Steeland army, even the well-known river patrol squad used fire arrows in the crossbows. Isabel asked Vlad if she could have some fun with the rebels. Vlad just nodded, thinking. He made plans against Iverland. This damned insane count ruined his plans. Vlad must begin preparation for a war against the Reichland, but he is distracted by the south. The ancient vampire decided to attack the capital of the Iverland in order to force Marius to return to his lands and leave Sylvania alone. Halfway to Iverland, Vlad received a bet with the message that Isabella had successfully taken control of the rest of Steeland. Good news indeed. Now his hero is protected and he can go on the full offensive. The garrison of Iverland was huge and well fortified. The city was defended by over 2,000 soldiers. The army of Children of the Night was again outnumbered, but Vlad counted on his own and Emmanuel's magical powers. As usual, the skeletons used their kin to climb the walls. The Blood Knights were breaking down the main gate, and on the walls, flying monsters fought to prepare a place for skeletons. It was Vlad's hardest battle since his resurrection. Even Emmanuel died once more time in this battle, but she was saved by filling her with fresh human blood by the noble knights of the Order Draconis. The Wagaes have fulfilled their task, but at a high price. Vlad lost a lot of strange, after this battle, though many hundreds of skeletons lay motionless in the streets of Averland. But even at a high price, the city was taken. It was a victory. To celebrate, Vlad raised Albert Ludenhof, a skeleton champion, to save him in death. The great lord of Averland has arrived in the halfling village. Vlad immediately dispatched his new skeleton champion there to weaken Marius' powers, only for Ludenhof to be wounded by the army once. What a shame! The Lord of Sylvania prepared an ambush in the area of the bridge connecting Moot and Averland. But the human lord, in his madness, did not try to reclaim his capital. He attacked Fort Obastia and took control of it. Vlad was furious. His flocks were slaughtered by the Imperials. Living informants sent a message to Isabella that the human Udolf Engel had gathered a small army to rebel against the new ruler of Furtbad, and that he received help from Averland and hired mercenaries and adventurers to end the rule of the undead. The vampires decided to end this rebellion, and he killed everyone who wanted to challenge the rulers of the night. To cut off Marius' line of reinforcement, Vlad took over the Moot once again. This village joined the undead empire, and there were so many dead corpses and unharvested fields that a tribe of ogres migrated there to feed their eternally hungry stomachs. Even the Mad Count understood that without supplies, he would not be able to continue fighting. Thus, he made a desperate attempt to destroy Vlad's forces. Even a small detachment from Averland tried to help him, approaching Vlad from the rear. Once again, the field's named Moot became a battlefield. Using his magical powers, Vlad was closer to the enemy formations than they could expect, and launched a counterattack. The Order Draconis was to destroy the Knights of the Empire, and the skeletal infantry was to pin down the enemy infantry at a time when direwolves and vagies hunted musketeers and archery regiments. Vlad ordered Emmanuel to use her magic against the enemy and to join him in the duel against Marius when the time came. Mounted pistoliers should not take into account because vampires do not yet have any possibility to overspeed and catch them into a battle. And as expected, the pistoliers ran out of ammo and were killed in close combat with the Blood Knights. Emmanuel vows that she killed Marius, but his reinforcements took his body, so Vlad could not verify it, and that made him angry. Even so, he was insane. Marius was known not only for listening to the advice of his warhorse, but also for his ability to endure mortal wounds. After the battle, Vlad destroyed the rest of the retreating army, recruited a tribe of mounted ogres as mercenaries, and fed them the remaining hobbits they encountered along the way. And he also took back control of Fort Obastia. As the Patriarch von Carstein was distributing titles and positions to govern the settlement, a messenger from Tempelhof came to him The local governor, Stefan von Carstein, reported that an old necromancer had arrived at his court and presented him with a book, which turned out to be the Tome of Bone, also known as the Book of Arkham. Stefan immediately started to study that book, and after some experiments, he was able to make skeleton warriors stronger and more autonomous. They no longer had to be forced to move with magic. Now, they acted like golems, who must one day give a source of magic and then only give orders. This discovery changed everything. Vlad used skeletons because he had no other options. But now, they are turning up a powerful force in his hands. This is why Vlad elevated this governor over the other vampires, appointing him as his general. And Stefan, in turn, appointed a necromancer, Gordon von Drag, who brought him his book, as his right hand and advisor. Having dealt with the fort, Vlad moved his troops through Mood to Schwarzhafen, took control of this settlement, and found that some living warriors would be happy to join the army of their protector. Von Carstein accepted them and forbade the vampires to drink the blood of these brave Sylvanian crossbowmen. And these living creatures gave alarming information that red men were seen near the village. And this time Isabella captured Grenzstadt and prepared to capture Steingart. She knew of the dwarves who proclaimed the foothills as their territory, but decided to enslave humans first. Jealous of Emanuel Posner, Isabella's maid, Sivon Helsnich, searched Hellsteads in Avaland, but these nightmarish creatures were very rare. This is why she fibbed and asked her aristocratic family to gift her this mount so that she could demonstrate her noble family on the right hand of Isabella as a powerful and rich one. A few days later, she was already learning to control this creature by following her mistress. While Isabella took Steingart, Vlad was on his way to the eastern part of the empire, but instead of immediately attacking the Reichland, he decided to enlist the support of the theoretical allies, the Knight of the Order Draconis, and their leader, Shaitan Harkon. And for this, he decided to give them the blood gift back, which was a null. But before that, the city had to be captured. And even the attack by the dwarfs from Karak Hill on Grenzstadt did not change his plans. Vlad and Isabella were preparing a simultaneous strike on the lands of Wissenland. The ruler of Sylvania and Stilan planned to attack Null. His beloved, however, was planning to attack Faldorf and to wade from both sides into the land of Wissenland, clutching the resistance in pincers. Stefan was entrusted with dealing with the dwarves, which he approached with all responsibility and prepared a small surprise for them. Elizabeth von Drach, one of Isabel's distant relatives, the right hand of Countess Emanuel, and the strongest known amethyst mage, approached the fortress. Seeing that reinforcements were on the way, Nun's garrison climbed out from behind the walls to take battle in the open field. Foreseeing this, Vlad split his army, used the magic fog to go from the rear and cut off reinforcements on the way to the enemy forces, leaving a part of his army in the front of the garrison units to tie them up in battle. Even when the troops of the garrison spotted the legions of the undead, they made a fatal mistake and for some reason dispersed their forces, leaving the artillery and crossbowmen defenseless. On the other side of the battlefield, undead wolves tried to tie up rocket batteries, but were met by a human shield of knights and swordmen, and the artillery could fire several volleys until the Vages arrived and destroyed them. Elsfeld was killed by von Carstein, and after that the battle was won. Only a few people survived this massacre and were able to retreat inside the city walls. At the same time, another battle was being fought. Isabella's forces were also attacking by a garrison, but this was a short one. After scaring off the artillery team and killing the hunter general, the battle was already won. And though both of Wissen's largest cities have fallen. Emmanuel of Null was ripped apart by some Vargas in his sleeping room. The body of Elsfeld was found and brought to Vlad in the throne room of Null, where he resurrected her as a vampire. And after her reincarnation, she told many things to the Lord of the Night. The most important thing was, she knew where the von Carstein ring was. Vlad sent all his agents to find this ring and bring it to him. And finally, it was back again. But it was strongly weakened. Vlad needed a strong source of the dark magic to recharge this artifact. And again, Elsfeld was able to help him. She told that a few weeks ago, a part of Morsleep was sighted falling. She offered to find some astrologers to let them calculate where the meteor fell. And Isabella in Faldorf found an abundant laboratory of a very educated mage, probably a magician of metal. He experimented with living animals by tuning them into metal golems. In the whole room only one creature was moving, surrounded by decaying bodies in cages. It was a hell state. Isabel felt sorry for such a wondrous beast and let it free. But it doesn't flee. Even so, it wasn't aggressive. The creature buried his skull on Isabella's shoulder and made a pleased sound. And the vampires understood. They are now bound forever. At the time of two battles against humans, the third battle was taking place. Kurgen Helheim attacked Stefan's army at the foothills of the Black Mountains, and Stefan could use his preparations for the unholy crusade against Karak here. First preparation was Alberich Ludenhof, who was sent to explore the mountains to take the journey easier. Second preparation, but the most important one, was a mortis engine, a terrifying chariot of ghosts that sucks life from anyone nearby. Stefan placed his forces to protect a choke point, knowing that the enemy army had no range wings. He prepared for a long battle, where the mortis engine will be down dwarf troops. And the mortis shrine gathered many dwarf souls, almost as many as Darwolves or Undead Knights. Surely, the names of Stefan von Carstein and Cardon von Drag are now in Davies' grunge books. After losing the main forces, the Wissenland fell fast apart under the pressure of vampire armies, and as the province was secured, Vlad returned to Nuln and let rise some grave gods of the Bloodkeep that were lying in the ruins. Isabella went to help Stefan with the dwarves, and Vlad was sitting on the throne of Nuln and thinking about the plan to get Altdorf. On the way to Karakion, the undead found traces of some giant undead creatures, large ghouls called the Crypt Horrors. Stefan took them under his mental control to prove his power to Isabella. And when they got to the city, these giants destroyed the city gates, while the rest of the army climbed the walls or dived into the defenses from heaven. Thanks to the well-coordinated work of the vampires, the city fell almost without loss. Elsfeth came into the throne room of Nuln and bowed before her master. The meteor must have fallen at the southern Walls Edge Mountains. The exact location is still unknown, but I volunteer to find it for you, my seer, and it would even be more useful. In my collection, I do have an artifact that will be able to teleport you to me with an army. After hearing this, Vlad blessed the young vampires and let her prepare for the journey. Now, almost everything was prepared for the war against Reichland, and the new Emperor of Mankind, Karl Franz. Everything except for the ring. And Isabella was on her way through Solon too far away. But Vlad already killed the elector counts of Stirland, Aveland, and Wissenland. And Karl would notice it and will gather the rest of elector counts for the war against the vampires. Now, he still has an element of surprise. He should attack immediately. Wait. Did I say Vlad killed 3 electricons? But on this concept is written that Marius Lydorf was killed by orcs in the Black Fire Pass. And here are some notices that Albert Andersen and Emanuel of Nuln were sighted in Altdorf through the Chaos invasion. Even Elsfeth. There are some theories that she was more than mortal because of the strong connection to Shrish. But the vampire? Saving Vlad? What a nonsense! I have to return all the notices now. Could you please leave me? Come back later.